Hey YouTube, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm really excited because it is my older niece's second birthday party and I will be bringing 3 different flavors of cheese balls for appetizers. So I've got my ingredients all laid out for the first recipe. Let's go ahead and get started. I think my stand mixer with my paddle attachment is going to make this job way easier today. I'm going to be working with a lot of soft cream cheese and other cheese, so I think this is going to be the way to go if you've got this option available. I'm also going to be hand shredding all the cheese it calls for. You can probably use shredded cheese for this recipe or for any of these recipes, but I just am in the habit of using hand shredded for multiple reasons. One is cost effectiveness. It costs more to buy a product that is already processed, so when you have the manufacturers already shredding your cheese for you and also coating it with materials to keep it shredded and not melt and stick together during shipping and storage, the costs of that stuff starts adding up. Speaking of the cheese, I'm going to be using 1.5 cups of this block of sharp cheddar. I've got 16 ounces of soft cream cheese. This has been sitting out since I went to the store yesterday. It's gonna have 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce and then 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. I totally forgot to mention the other reason I buy whole blocks of cheese and shred them myself. Besides it being more cost effective, you also get a much better melt when you use cheese that doesn't have that powdery substance on the outside of the pre-shredded or pre-grated. I also grate my own Parmesan every time I need it. It's also just fresher that way. And I just finished off my block that I used for the mac and cheese, so let me measure this and we'll see how much I need of that big block. So here's about 1 cup. I don't know if I'm supposed to pack it down. It's just said 1.5 cups of sharp cheddar. I bet the recipe is banking on using bagged pre-shredded cheese, so probably not packed. It's pretty close to 1.5 cups. Since I did pack the cup, I'll say this is pretty good. I'm going to get my cream cheese added to the bowl first. Go ahead and mix this a little bit to make mixing the cheese in a little easier. I'm going to slowly add my cheese so it doesn't all clump together in one spot. Next we'll add our 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. I'm going to measure over my orange bowl just in case I accidentally overmeasure. And last we'll add the garlic powder. I'm going to scrape down the sides of the bowl real quick and just give it one more quick mix. So this is way too soft to shape into a ball right now, so I'll scoop this out into the orange bowl that I was using to measure the cheese and let it chill in the fridge for a little bit so that it's hard enough to shape. and then we'll come back to this one later. And I'll go ahead and cover this with saran wrap. It's gonna make things way easier later. I actually woke up pretty early this morning to get these started, so my husband just woke up and I'm going to make us a quick cup of coffee and tea. Well, our coffee and tea have about 2 minutes left. I went ahead and washed my mixing bowl and paddle while I was waiting on that, because Worcestershire is kind of a strong flavor and I didn't want that to kind of bleed over into the spinach and artichoke cheese ball, so that's what we're going to be working on next. Let me go ahead and get everything ready and I will show you what we're going to be using for this recipe. Well, I realized while I was getting everything together that I actually was out of mayonnaise, so I just got back from Walmart. But what we're going to be using for the spinach and artichoke cheese ball is 8 ounces of cream cheese as our base again. We're going to have a packet of Hidden Valley ranch dressing mix, 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, a cup of artichoke hearts finely chopped and well drained, 5 ounces of frozen chopped spinach. I'm defrosting it now and I'll use the paper towel to drain it very well. A 1/4 cup of red pepper, 1 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese, and a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, grated. Well, I haven't got my other cheese shredded yet, but I need somewhere to put these red peppers, so I'm going to go ahead and get my cream cheese mixing. I'm going to go ahead and add another 1/4 cup, so it'll be about a 1/2 cup total of this red pepper. I just think it looks really good in here and it'll look really good with the spinach and artichokes, and so I'll just go ahead and add just a little bit more. I still have plenty more for the 2 tablespoons of diced red peppers for the topping. So here I am with my artichokes. I'm really trying to drain these well. They were sitting in olive oil and some spices, which is the way that I like to buy them. But you really don't want any extra liquid in here because that will throw off the consistency and the cheese ball will not stick together. So I'm trying to get as much of that off as I can, and then I'm going to give these a really fine chop. Let's get our artichokes added. And the last thing we need to get ready is the spinach, and this is almost thawed. I still feel it's still a little chilly, but I can manipulate the shape and it can break apart pretty easily. So I'm trying to do what I can right now to squeeze as much liquid out as I can. I may go and chunk this in the microwave for about 10 seconds just to finish melting any ice crystals that may be in here. I think I'll go do that real quick. Alright, I actually nuked it for about 10 seconds and it was still cold, so I did it for another 15 seconds or so, and now look. So that's the trick. Squeeze out as much of that liquid as you can get. It smells really good. It smells like spinach. Still see some ice crystals in here. But my fingers are melting them, and this is looking pretty good. So I'll go ahead and dump this in our bowl. This really smells so good. And we're going to have a similar problem with this one. Obviously, I can't shape this into a ball as is, but I'm going to put this back into that clear bowl I was using to grate the cheese into, and we will let it chill in the fridge for a little bit, and after that we will be able to mold it into a ball. Speaking of which, I think our first cheese ball is probably about ready. Now before I can really start mixing this up, I'm going to go ahead and pre-cook some bacon. The recipe calls for 6 strips, but I'm almost out, so I only had 4, but I'm going to use what I've got. It should be fine, and once the bacon's done, I will come back and we'll get this all put together. For our last cheese ball, we're going to be doing an everything bagel cheese ball, and I am really excited about this one. I love bagels. We're going to start out again with 8 ounces of cream cheese softened, half a cup of sour cream. Alright, a couple of notes about the cheese. The recipe calls for half a cup each of Jarlsberg cheese and New York cheddar, both shredded. First of all, I'm from Texas. I've never heard of New York cheddar. I don't know what's special about it, so I'm using regular sharp cheddar. Jarlsberg cheese, never heard of it until I saw this recipe. The recipe says if you can't find Jarlsberg, use any Swiss, buttery, nutty, or mild cheese in its place. I didn't want to use mozzarella. I thought that would be too mild. I may toss in a little bit of extra Parmesan or mozzarella, but what I've got just for this time, I didn't know what to do, so I got Colby Jack. It's a mixture of Colby and Monterey Jack cheese, and those are both each about a half a cup shredded. And then finally, I've got 2 scallions chopped and my 4 strips of bacon chopped. scrape down the sides, make sure it's all nice and evenly mixed. And then I'll put this back in my orange bowl that I measured out my cheese in, and we'll do the same process again. I'll just scoop it out, chill it, and then we'll make a ball later. Time to shape our second mixture into a ball. My saran was a little too small, so I'm trying again. Now that our last mixture has chilled in the fridge for a little while, let's go ahead and shape it into a ball. Here are all three resting in the fridge. The everything with bagel cheese ball will be the easiest for me to top because I actually bought this pre-mixed everything bagel seasoning, this giant container full of it, and normally I like to make my own, mix my own spice blends and things like that, but I checked the ingredients on these and it's everything I recognize: white and black sesame seeds, onion, garlic, poppy seeds, salt, and the only thing that's in it is canola oil, which I'm sure they use to toast it. So that's going to be last anyway, but I wanted to let you know about that because it's going to go pretty quick. In the meantime, I'm going to mix together our two other topping blends, so hang tight while I get things ready and I'll go over that in just a second. Alright, so I've chopped some parsley. I've divided it in half because it goes in both the topping for the spinach and artichoke, and Kate wanted it in the traditional cheese ball topping as well, so I'm going to put this in each one of my bags. The other ingredient that's in both the spinach and artichoke dip topping and the traditional is going to be Parmesan. So I'll grate up about a 1/4 cup total and divide it in half between the two. To finish up the topping for the traditional cheese ball, I'm just chopping up one more green onion. So that one's going to be a mixture of green onion, Parmesan, and parsley. And then to finish off the spinach and artichoke cheese ball topping, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of panko breadcrumbs. I'm just happening to use Italian style today, but you don't have to use that. You can use plain or whatever you prefer. And 1 tablespoon of melted butter. So the full list of topping ingredients for the spinach and artichoke cheese ball topping is breadcrumbs, butter, parsley, Parmesan, and the red peppers that I diced earlier. So when we're done adding all of the ingredients to the bags, we can just give them a good mix. Make sure they get mixed up really well so that you don't have clumps of certain ingredients in some areas of the ball and you're lacking things in others. Bust it open. That'll be good when I pour it out onto the plate. And now for the traditional. This one was Parmesan, green onion, and parsley. And I'll just stick these in the fridge until I'm ready to top the cheese balls. All right, it's time to get rolling. I'm gonna do the traditional first because that's the first one we made. It smells pretty good. And the recipe does say to top this with pecans, but her husband is not a huge fan of pecans. That's why I'm making the substitutions. And you'll see that I have a fresh piece of saran wrap underneath. I'm not going to rewrap it in this old one because then I'm going to be traveling with it. And I don't want the residual cream cheese and everything else that's stuck to the plastic to pull all of my toppings off when I take the wrapper off. So I'm wrapping it fresh. And you'll want to kind of help these stick by pushing them in a little bit. And if it falls off onto the saran wrap, that's fine because it's going to be pressed up against the cheese ball after we wrap it. So not a big deal. This is looking pretty good to me. There are some exposed parts, but I think it'll be fine overall. I'm going to wash my hands. Let's get this rewrapped. And back into the fridge for now. Alright, the spinach and artichoke ball has just a little bit more bulk to the topping, and this one is softer than the other two, so I'm going to have to be very careful when I'm rolling this one out. I think the reason why this one was softer is because I got lazy at the spinach step, so that just really reinforces the fact that you need to get as much of the liquid drained and soaked up as possible. That being said, this one was still a huge hit and definitely a crowd pleaser, so even though it was a little softer, the flavor was on point. It smells really good. This actually feels easier to work with once you get it topped. I know that was an absolute mess. I made a huge mess on this, but like I said earlier, this will all be pressed against the cheese ball, and I'm going to put it back in the fridge, and then I'm going to transport it in a cooler so it'll be kept cold until about 30 minutes or so before we're ready to serve it. And I actually forgot, I'm going to do one more thing before I put this in the fridge. I forgot to do this on the original, so I'll have to take that out and fix it, but give me 1 second and get cleaned up. He's going to have a little pretzel stick nose, but isn't he so cute? Here's the traditional guy. Alright, last one. Let's get this everything bagel cheese ball covered. Alright, that looks pretty good, huh? Alright, careful. It may be hard to tell from this video, but I actually loathe saran wrap or anything similar to it. It's probably my second least favorite thing in the kitchen besides washing dishes. I think that looks pretty dang good. Well, I think that is the cutest looking one. Look at that little bagel man, he's so cute.